Welcome to my pumpkin mandala tutorial where I'm going to show you how to make this very easy but very impressive pumpkin mandala. This mandala is perfect for fall, Halloween, and many other things. It's beautiful as decor or as a gift, and it's very easy to make. So whether you're brand new to making mandalas and working with your Cricut, or you've been doing it for years, you're going to absolutely love this project. We've got multiple layers in here that are the pumpkin, 2 layers for the leaves. The leaf layers are optional, so it's totally up to you. You can also customize the colors that are used for each layer. You can customize the sizing, and of course you can choose to use foam dots or not. The foam dots will give you a little bit more dimension. I've got the free SVG file for this on my blog, so you can download that very easily from my resource library. And I've also got full instructions for how to do this on my blog, but you can watch this video too, learn a few tricks, and then get started right away. Like I said, very easy, so let's get started making your mandala.
All right, so we're in a fresh canvas in Design Space, and what we're going to do next is upload our file. So we're going to click over here to upload, and then you're going to find upload image and then browse, and you're going to browse to the version of the file that you've got. Again, you're going to have downloaded this file from my resource library and extracted it until you get to a point where you see the individual files and you're looking for the file titled SVG. It might be named differently, but that's what you're looking for, the one SVG file that's in the zip file you downloaded from my resource library. You'll see a quick preview of it over here, and then you're going to click on upload. That's going to then put it into your Design Space library. So you're going to click on the file you just uploaded and then click on add to canvas. Now that you've got it in your canvas, the next thing you're going to want to do is resize it. I'm going to be putting this into a shadow box that is a 12 by 12 shadow box. It really only can hold about an 11.5 size mandala inside it. And what I'm actually going to do is make my design about 10.5 inches wide, just so that I've got enough space all the way around on the shadow box for it to look the way I want it to look. So do remember, you do need to check the inside dimensions of your shadow box if you're putting it in a shadow box, and then decide what works best for you based on what those dimensions are. So again, roughly that big. Let's actually go up here and we're going to type it in. We're going to type in 10.5. Now I want to make sure that we're 10.5 all the way around. This is 10.42 for the height. That's totally fine. So 10.5, 10.42, we don't need to stretch the dimensions. So this is now set the way I want it to cut. So now we're ready to go. At this point, you can go straight to cutting. The other thing you could do if you wanted to visualize different color options is you could ungroup this. So you would right click on it, click ungroup, and you could pull out individual pieces here and alter your colors, just so that you can visualize what your final thing will look like. You don't need to do this in Design Space. You can just pick your colors separately and then cut them and see how they look, but that's just an option for you if you want to do that. If you decide you do want to visualize it in Design Space before you start cutting, what you're going to do is you're going to click on a specific layer and you're going to go up here to where your color palette is, and you can pick colors from here. You can also click on advance and further change your colors. So let's say we picked yellow, for example. There we go, that's what it would look like. And then you would click Control A to select everything. Go back to align on the top here and click center to again visualize what your final product would look like with that color change. Again, that is an extra step you do not need to do. So I'm actually going to undo it and leave it how I had it. And we can go from here. All right, so now we're ready to cut. We're going to click on Make It. Then you'll click on Continue, and once your Cricut Maker is connected, you're going to see this window. Now I usually choose medium cardstock for 65-pound cardstock, which is what I'm using for this project, and I'll leave it on the default setting. If you are doing a smaller size than I did in this video, you may want to choose Intricate Cut. In that case, you'll click on Browse and you'll search for Intricate Cut. When you select this, this will help you cut stuff that's a little bit smaller or thinner with less risk of tearing or damaging the paper. All right, now I'm sticking to medium cut and, like I said, default setting. Some people do choose to use the more setting, but I find that more often than not that does end up tearing my paper. So it really is just up to you and the type of cardstock you choose. So if you use something other than 65-pound cardstock, you may have to tinker with this. Now we're ready to head over to the machine and our supplies. As you can see, we're going to need 5 different shades of orange or whatever combination you choose, 2 shades of green for your leaves, a standard cut mat, a shadow box. 2 optional tools would be a weeding tool and a scraper, and of course your Cricut machine. And now we're ready to cut.
All right, as you can see, I've already cut 2 of the pieces. We're going to continue cutting the cardstock, and if you're new to cutting cardstock with a Cricut machine, I'm going to show you all the steps on how to do it. If you've done this multiple times before, then you can probably skip ahead just a little bit. All right, so we're grabbing the right color cardstock that we want for the layer that we're cutting. And we're gonna grab a standard grit mat for this one. You can use a light grit mat, but I find that if we're doing a mandala and it's got lots of intricate cuts at some point, that the standard grit mat does work a lot better. Now next you wanna push down on the paper and really make sure that you press it into the mat so that the paper doesn't come up while cutting. If it lifts up while cutting, then there's a good chance that we're gonna end up with some inaccurate cuts. All right, so just press down really, really well. Also, you'll see I'm using a 12 by 24 mat. You can use a 12 by 12 mat. It's just what I had out at the moment. All right, now we're gonna feed it through these little pieces here and click on the double-sided arrow. That's going to pull your mat into the machine. Now, once the C starts flashing, the little Cricut icon, we're gonna click that. And that starts to cut. All right, now once that's done cutting, you are going to click on the double arrows again to remove the mat from the feeder. If this was one of the layers that had more intricate cuts, what you'd want to do at this point, if it doesn't look like it cut all the way through, you'll have to make a judgment call. But you can click on the Cricut icon again, and it'll feed it in again and recut it a second time. You just want to make sure if you do that, that you're not releasing the mat. You want to keep it in this position and press the C again here. You shouldn't have to do that on this design, but if that does happen to you where you look at the mat, just do a quick look over and it needs another pass through, that is an option. All right, so we're going to now just remove it. And again, if you're new to working with cardstock, here's a little trick for you that you may not know. If you've been doing this for a while, you probably already know this. When you remove your cardstock from your mat, you want to flip it over and then peel back the mat from the cardstock. If you do it the other way around, you're actually going to end up curving your cardstock, which is not going to work out well for you because now your design will have all sorts of bends and curves in it. All right, so you can see it removes cleanly. We've got our design right here, and there are a few small little pieces that need to come out. Most of those you can just do by hand, just like that, but if any of them are really tiny, what you can do at that point is just use your weeding tool. All right, so I'm gonna cut the rest of these, weed out the pieces, and show you how to assemble it. All right, so now we've got all of our pieces cut. And just spread these out so you can see what it'll look like when you're done. All right, so these are all of your pieces. Once they're cut, you're going to want to line them up in the right sizing. So you should have 2 very thick pieces, orange pieces, and then you'll have a thicker green one, a more detailed green one, and then these, again, are just ordered by thickness. At this point, you have 2 choices. Since we are doing a shadow box, typically we'll want to put these little foam dots in between, and what that'll do is it'll give it some depth within the shadow box. If you don't have these foam dots, you don't have to use them. You can, of course, just glue the pieces together and it'll look something like this. But adding the foam dots really adds some depth depth to it and makes it really much nicer looking. So we're going to start doing that. When you do the foam dots, what I like to do is flip it over and start with the bottom layer first. So you're going to find your bottom layer, and then you're going to put your foam dots on the back of the next most top layer from there and go forwards. That way you're always building from the base up versus building from some of the more flimsy pieces towards the top. All right, so these are your foam dots. I'm just going to show you the first layer and then I'll speed it up so we can complete the project. All right, so you're going to grab some foam dots here, and I like to put them towards the edge, as much towards the edge as I can. And typically I'll put about 4 or so per piece. And if you've got, when you get to some of the finer layers, you may want to add a few more because you want to make sure some of those really thin pieces don't droop. All right, now just remove the backing from each of these. And then you just want to center it. Once you've got it centered, you push down. Now, if you do need to readjust it, you do have a few moments where you can do that pretty easily. The longer it does sit in the position, the more it's going to be adhered and the harder it is going to be to pull it off. Sometimes when the colors are pretty similar, I like to just angle it a little bit to make sure that I like where everything sits. And then you can continue with the rest of the pieces. So I'm going to do the rest of these. I'll speed it up a little bit and show you what that looks like. Now, something else to note here, you'll see I did it on this one. Sometimes you're going to want to put some pieces towards the middle. So you don't always want to put them on the edges, and that's just to make sure that as you're building up your mandala and your layers, that it doesn't weigh down in the middle. All right, now you'll notice on this one as we get to the thinner pieces, I'm adding some glue dots on each of the little strips here just to make sure that they don't collapse as we put them together. So I've got some on the top and then a few on each of these strips. All right, I actually put these on the wrong side, so it does happen. With this design, it's not symmetrical, so we do need to have them on the right side. And as you can see, because I only put them on a few seconds ago, it's actually fairly easy to pull them from one side to the other. So I'm just going to do that real quick, and then you can line them up and attach this piece. So what I'm doing on this layer is I'm trying to put the little foam dots in some of the thickest areas. All right, so I'm looking at this and I'm noticing that this first one I didn't center very well. So let's see if I can actually readjust it. I'm doing this mainly to show that you can fix mistakes when you're working on these. It does obviously happen. So in this case, that was actually pretty easy to do. So hopefully I can do a better job centering it this time. I think that's better. And there we go. No harm done. All right, so we've got our little pumpkin. And now it's time to put it in our shadow box. Let's move that off to the side. This is the shadow box I'm going to be using. All right, now you're going to flip it over. You can use lots of different types of shadow boxes, obviously. This is the one that I chose to use. And I'm actually going to put foam dots on the back of this piece again. That way it's also raised from the paper. All right, I've got a yellow sheet of cardstock. Let's just briefly see what that would look like, and I'm actually pretty happy with that. So let's line that up. There we go. All right, now the next thing is actually going to be to adhere our piece of paper to the backing. Now the reason we want to do that is because since this is a shadow box, we have this innermost compartment here. So this provides some spacing for us and for your project, which you can now see is fairly thick. If we put the paper directly on here, it's going to sag. And so we want to make sure that it actually stays against the board so that it doesn't move around. We actually can, again, use foam dots for this. We don't actually need it to provide depth, but I don't have double stick tape right now. So we'll just use this instead. And this will also make it really easy to remove it if you ever choose to use a shadow box for something else. All right, now just close that back up. And there we go. We've got our cute little pumpkin shadow box.